We've talked a lot over the years about specific trees and shrubs and plants you can eat in your landscape, but not really about how to create an entirely edible landscape. So instead of focusing on the individual peach, even though it does look luscious enough to eat, we're going to talk first about the smaller trees. You can substitute apple for crabapple. You can use peaches as long as you realize that these are not long-term plants in the landscape necessarily. The same thing is true of cherries. We have a couple of cherries that are absolutely beautiful. With all these plants, what you really need to start with is what is the fruit you want? How are you going to actually manage that? How do you expect to have that contribute to your landscape overall? And then, of course, is your site suitable for that particular location? Including the brambles in your edible landscape is both challenging and really satisfying. The red raspberries, this happens to be heritage, are going to run, as are the blackberries and most of the brambles. And of course, they have thorns. So knowing the right situation to put them in, knowing how to manage them so they are either kind of a little bramble forest, if you will, or training them properly is going to both contribute to the aesthetics of that landscape as well as provide a greater, higher quality fruit for you for the long run in that edible landscape. We're really focusing on trees and shrubs and perennials that are a part of the edible landscape, but there are many herbs that can also contribute that way. We think always about plants like basil, which of course are tender and annual and beautiful, but you could add borage or thyme or salvia or the sages to your landscape. Those become permanent additions, especially if they're in a hot, sunny, very well-drained area where perhaps some of the other plants that you would like to grow as edibles really won't do quite as well. We've talked about small trees and brambles and herbs. We haven't talked about what we call understory trees, and these are the ones that want to be under the canopy of the big guys. Persimmon and pawpaw come to mind, and notice the fruits on this beautiful persimmon. Of course, not ready yet. This is another one of those trees that contributes to the landscape in a big way, including either the fruits or the suckers that form a colony. And the same is true of pawpaw. They like this shaded condition. Then we go to the larger trees. We could consider hickory, pecan, because we do have some really beautiful northern pecans, walnut as trees that contribute to the landscape and provide that shade, as opposed to some of the trees like maples that are overplanted in many situations and don't really provide things for human beings to eat. And then of course we have those shrubs. We haven't even touched on the shrubs. Elderberries, beloved by the birds and the people, one or two of the viburnums, shrub roses that provide wonderful amounts of vitamin C in those hips, the currants, many other plants that can contribute as woody plant material to a truly edible landscape.